Happy Friday, everybody. Here we are with part 3, Azalea. Interesting. So yesterday we had kind of a sad video. Evan's friends, they shaved their heads for him, and they had an assembly for him, and which was really, really sweet of him, or of them to do that for him. So here we go. Feeling blue. Scientific data has proven beyond a doubt that there are very few things more odd-looking than a 6th grade zombie girl. But one could surmise that one of these things is probably a 6th grade zombie girl who is bald. And another one of those things is definitely a 6th grade zombie girl with blue hair. I should know. I've been all 3 of those things. On that morning, I'd done exactly what Arnold Zombie had asked me to do, and what Mr. and Mrs. Brantley had said was okay to do. Gone to the nurse's office, where Nurse Raposa, who was very nice, by the way, proceeded to shave my head in about 10 seconds flat. I hadn't mentioned a word about it to Evan because it was a secret. The surprise worked extremely well. When Evan walked into the gym full of bald boys and some bald girls too, he was shocked. It was the happiest I'd seen him since I'd moved into their house. For the next several weeks, a bunch of the other children stayed bald because they said they weren't going to grow their hair back until Evan's treatment was completed. Other children decided to grow their hair back. I wasn't sure what I was going to do, but a few days after I cut my hair, I was reading a book at the kitchen table when Mrs. Brantley said to me, "Azalea, have you been experimenting with hair products?" "What's a hair product?" I asked her. She laughed slightly. "Well, hun, it's something that does something to your hair, like makes it look wet, for example, or makes it stay in place on a windy day, and sometimes it makes hair change color. And as your hair is coming in blue, I was wondering if Lester Kinder's friend Darlene had lent you some blue product." I'm sorry, did you say blue?" "Why, yeah. Haven't you checked in the mirror recently?" That was an unnecessary question. I never checked the mirror. I could not comprehend why regular humans did it all the time. Didn't they already know what they looked like? They lived with themselves 24 hours a day. "I'm sorry, I have not." "Well, you might want to, hun." "Very well." I went to the downstairs bathroom and looked in the mirror. It was always strange to look at myself, but it was stranger today because Mrs. Brantley was correct. My hair, which at some point was still very short and bristly, was coming in light blue. I touched it just to make sure it was really there. Obviously, these pictures aren't colored, but you can see what she looks like bald-ish. I was still finding it hard to trust mirrors and confirmed that it was. Then I went back to the kitchen table. "My hair is blue," I said to Mrs. Brantley, even though she'd been one to tell me that in the first place. "I guess that wasn't in the zombie handbook," she said. I knew she was trying to make a joke, so I tried to laugh. Just then, Evan came in from taking out the garbage. "Hey, everyone, what's going on?" "My hair is blue," I repeated. "Huh?" He walked over to me to get a closer look. "Holy smokes, it is," he said. "That's so cool." He took out his phone. "I gotta tell Arnold so he can tell Lester so he can tell Darlene. She's gonna love this." Evan called Arnold's house and put the phone on speaker so we could all hear. "Hello?" said a voice, probably Arnold's mother. "Hi, Mrs. Kinder. Is Arnold there?" Evan said. "Oh, hi, Evan, of course. Just hold on a sec. We're having some drama over here at the moment." "What kind of drama?" Evan asked, but Mrs. Kinder was already gone. 2 seconds later, Arnold came on the phone. "Evan, guess what?" "What?" "My hair is turning blue." We all looked at one another. "That's pretty funny, Evan." "Because so is Azalea's." "That's pretty funny," Arnold said, Evan, "because so is Azalea's." So that's how we discovered that when you cut off Afterlife's human hair, it grows back blue. Darlene was so excited that she wrote a whole blog post about it. She took pictures of Arnold and me once a week, and pretty soon the whole town was following how our hair was growing. Then the next thing we knew, people started showing up at school with blue hair. At first, just a few, but pretty soon it was more than half of the students in our grade. Then Coach Hank came to school with blue hair. Coach Hank was a very odd person. During all of the blue hair commotion, the last thing anybody cared about or noticed was the fact that Evan's hair had now completely fallen out. Even Evan himself didn't care. So I guess my hair turned blue for a reason. Down the rabbit hole. Curiouser and curiouser, I asked Mrs. Huggle. That's not proper English, is it? She sighed. You're correct, Azalea. Technically, it's not proper English. However, since it's one of the most famous things Alice says, and since you're playing Alice, and since the play we're doing is Alice in Wonderland, I'm going to have to ask you to say that line anyway. Why is that line so famous if it's not proper English? I asked. Mrs. Huggle sighed again. I asked Mrs. Huggle a lot of questions. Fortunately, she was a very patient person. My brain works differently from regular humans. I think most regular humans accept things that don't make sense as long as everyone else accepts them. But if something doesn't make sense to me, I will ask why over and over again. The other children who were in the play rolled their eyes every time I asked a question, but I couldn't help it, and they knew they couldn't blame me anyway. I was created that way. Okay, Mrs. Huggle, I will say curiouser and curiouser. I don't understand it, but I'll say it. We had been rehearsing a play for 17 days, and the performance was the next night. Apparently, a lot of people were going to attend that play. Evan said it was kind of a big deal. But I didn't know what that meant until we pulled into the school parking lot the night of the performance, and every space was filled. There were even cars parked alongside the road. I'd never seen that before. Wow, said Mrs. Brantley. This place is packed. As we walked inside, I started to get this feeling in my stomach that I didn't recognize. It was a tumultuous feeling, almost as if I'd eaten too many jelly beans for dinner, but I hadn't. I had only eaten 18. I always counted. Evan looked at me. Hey, are you okay? You look a little, I don't know, off? Mrs. Brantley glanced back at me. He's right. You look even paler than usual. Maybe a little bit of stage fright's kicking in? Stage fright? What's that? I asked. Well, Mrs. Brantley trailed off. She looked like she regretted bringing it up in the first place, but Evan was happy to fill in. Stage fright is when you're about to go on a stage to perform in front of a lot of people, but then you get so nervous that you can't do it. I'm pretty sure afterlife humans would not experience stage fright in the same way that normal humans would, said Mrs. Brantley, but it was too late. The damage had done. I officially had stage fright, and plenty of it. I went into the auditorium, which was already half full, even though the show wasn't going to start for another 30 minutes. Mrs. Huggle, who was scurrying around trying to get everything organized, saw me and came running over. Azalea, we need you to get in your costume right away! She took me by the hand and led me over to a table in front of a big mirror. All these mirrors, I looked at myself again. My blue hair was coming in more thickly now. I was going to be a blue-haired Alice in front of a lot of people I didn't know. What if they all laughed at me? What if they all thought I looked ridiculous? What if I tripped over the scenery and fell on my face? My stage fright was asking a lot of questions. Kiki, who was sitting next to me putting her costume on, noticed how nervous I seemed. Hey, are you okay? She asked. I have no idea, I said honestly. Then I had an idea. Hey, do you want to play Alice? Everyone says you usually play the lead roles in the plays. She shrugged. Well, yeah, I guess it's true, but you're going to kill it. She frowned. Kill it? That sounds terrible. Ugh. She let out a laugh. No, kill it is good. It means awesome. Then she thought for a second. I can see how being in a play for the first time would confuse someone, though, because there's a lot of expressions that sound bad but actually mean something good, like kill it, knock 'em dead, break a leg. Break a leg, what does that mean? It means good luck, but you don't need any luck because you're going to be great, Kiki said. Thanks, I said, and I hope you break a leg too. That made her crack up, and suddenly I felt better. Kiki was like that. After I hurried into my Alice outfit, I went to the side of the stage and peeked out from behind the curtain. The auditorium was practically full. I scanned the audience looking for people I knew, which turned out to not be very many people at all. Then I saw somebody who at first I thought I didn't recognize, and then I realized I did. Dr. Grasmere was there. The doctor from the territory who had surprised us at dinner that night a few months ago. The doctor who had tried to trap and trick Arnold when he'd come back to help. The doctor who said he wasn't working on Project Z anymore but would keep an eye on things anyway. He was there in his red jacket, sitting by himself in the third row, reading his program and smiling. A cold shiver ran down my body. The stage fright was now replaced by a more general fright. "Places, everyone!" cried Mrs. Huggle. "We're about to begin. Places, please, and good luck to all!" I took my position on stage. The lights went dark and the audience hushed. All of the rehearsing he'd done had led up to this moment, but all I could think about was Dr. Grassmere sitting there, probably trying to figure out a way to ruin everything. There was a buzzing in my ears, kind of like the buzzing they used in the territory when they were in the middle of programming our brains. Francesca Wormser, who was playing the narrator, was moving her lips, but I couldn't hear the words that she was saying. I glanced at Dr. Grassmere. His smile was wider. I looked at Mrs. Huggle, who was off to the side of the stage, pacing anxiously. She saw me and gave me a thumbs up. But it didn't help. The buzzing in my head got so much louder, so I moved closer to Francesca until finally I could make out the words she was saying. "And so she went down the rabbit hole." A small part of my brain realized that was my cue to start speaking, but the rest of my brain couldn't remember what I was supposed to say. "Down the rabbit hole," Francesca said again, louder and more insistent this time. Mrs. Huggle rushed out onto stage. "What a wonderful adventure I'm about to have," she said so quietly only I could hear. "What kind of adventure?" I asked her. "No, dear, that's your line. You can do it. I know you can." Dr. Grassmere was still staring at me, waiting for me to fail. But Mrs. Huggle, with her kind eyes, was encouraging me to succeed. And somehow I managed to listen to the part of my brain that told me to listen more to Mrs. Huggle than Dr. Grassmere. I turned out to the audience. "What a wonderful adventure I'm about to have," I said as loud as I possibly could. Everyone started clapping and cheering. I smiled, and I felt like a giant weight was lifted off my shoulders. The rest of the play went great. I remembered every line, and at the end we got a standing ovation. Curiouser and curiouser indeed. And there she is in her little dress. So it sounds like the play went really, really well. And I am going to stop there, I think. No, I'm not. I'm going to read the next chapter, and then I'm going to stop. It's pretty short, so. Special delivery. After the play ended, we got our standing ovation and took our bows. Then we went backstage and hugged and congratulated one another and changed back into our regular clothes. Then we went out to the lobby where people were waiting to say incredibly nice things to us. It was like the strangest feeling. People were shouting stuff like, "You were great!" and "How did you memorize all those lines?" and "You were born to play Alice." I could have corrected that person by reminding them that I'd never actually been born, but it didn't seem like the right time or place for that. Some people were hugging me like they knew me, even though they really didn't. Like I said, it was strange. Evan and his parents were waiting for me by the refreshments. When they saw me coming, they all clapped. "Watch out, Broadway, here she comes," Evan cried. I wasn't sure what Broadway was, but I was pretty sure Evan was giving me a compliment, so I said, "Thank you." We chatted about the show for about 5 minutes, and I was telling them how Mrs. Huggle helped me at the beginning when Mr. Brantley said, "Did you see who was here?" I nodded. "Yes, I saw Dr. Grassmere. Did you know he was coming?" "I had no idea," Mr. Brantley said, "and I'm sure his presence made you even more nervous than you were already." "It did," I admitted. "Well, you acquitted yourself wonderfully well. We're all so very proud of you," said Mrs. Brantley. "That's for sure," said Evan. Dr. Grassmere couldn't stay after. Oh, that was weird. My computer froze. Hopefully you heard all that. Oh, I'm going to back up a little bit because I think that was kind of weird. I don't know. I'm going to reread this page again. Oh, that was kind of strange. And maybe it didn't freeze. It froze on my end, though, so hopefully, I don't know. I wasn't sure what Broadway was, but I was pretty sure Evan was giving me a compliment, so I said, "Thank you." We chatted about the show for about 5 minutes, and I was telling them how Mrs. Huggle helped me at the beginning when Mr. Brantley said, "Did you see who was here?" I nodded. "Yes, I saw Dr. Grassmere. Did you know he was coming?" "I had no idea," Mr. Brantley said, "and I'm sure his presence made you even more nervous than you were already." It did," I admitted. "Well, you acquitted yourself wonderfully well. We're all so very proud of you," said Mrs. Brantley. "That's for sure," added Evan. "Dr. Grassmere couldn't stay after," said Mr. Brantley, "but he wanted me to congratulate you on his behalf. He thought your performance was very strong." He reached into his jacket pocket and took out an envelope. "But the other reason he came tonight was to give you this letter. Apparently it's from 2 of your fellow residents in the territory, and they were able to get the letter to you with Dr. Grassmere's help." I don't understand. Who is Dr. Grassmere trying to help, and why? He was always against us, I said. Mr. Brantley shrugged. "Not sure. It's addressed to you, so I wasn't going to open it." I took the letter and stuffed it into my pocket. "Thank you," I said. Evan looked surprised. "Don't you want to read it?" I did, of course, very much so, but for some reason I decided that a hallway full of screaming and happy people was probably not the best place to do that. I'll look at it later," I said. "That makes sense," said Mrs. Brantley. "Tonight is for celebrating. Let's have some punch." There was a big bowl of jelly beans put out for me, of course, and I guess for Arnold too, and I helped myself to a handful. Kiki and Ross spotted me and came running over. "That was awesome!" Kiki said. Ross looked a little shy. I'd never seen him look shy before. "How did you memorize all those words? I would never have been able to do that." "Yes, you would. Believe it or not, you can do all sorts of things you didn't know you could do," I told him. "Says you," he said, picking out 10 red jelly beans and popping them into his mouth all at once. Sarah Ann came over too with someone who was probably her dad. She was a very interesting person. She was really smart, you could tell, but she was very specific about how she communicated with people. She talked by pointing at letters on a board, and she wasn't comfortable looking directly at anyone. At first, I'd struggled to understand her because she pointed at letters so fast, but over the last few weeks, I was starting to figure it out. "You were really good tonight," she said. "You make a great Alice, just right for the part." "Thanks. What do you mean, right for the part?" I said. Sarah Ann hesitated for a few seconds, then started pointing again. "Alice is brave because she is willing to go to a strange place to have an adventure, just like you." I guess you're right, but I think she might be a little more brave than I am," I said. "What are you guys talking about?" asked Arnold, who just walked over. "Oh, not much. Sarah Ann was just saying how Alice and I have a lot in common, and I was saying how Alice had a lot more courage than I had." Arnold laughed. "That's ridiculous." "Totally ridiculous," Sarah Ann chimed in. I glanced around the room to make sure no one else was listening. "May I say something confidentially?" I was almost unable to perform tonight because Dr. Grassmere was here. Arnold's face went even wider than it already was. "What? He was? I didn't see him, and I'm glad I didn't." "Yeah, he was sitting right in the 3rd row." And there's the letter. I took out the envelope, and he brought me the letter from someone inside the territory. Arnold and Sarah Ann looked at each other. Then Sarah Ann decided to ask the obvious question. "Are you going to read it?" "Tonight, when I get home," I nodded. I know Sarah Ann and Arnold were both dying to know who'd sent the letter and what it said, and so was I. But I put it back in my pocket, and neither of them asked me about it again. Good friends know when to give you support, but they also know when to leave you alone. Oh man, the next page has the letter on it, but I'm gonna stop there. Oh, snap. Woo! You'll have to wait until Monday. Ooh, that's a really long letter, actually. It goes from the bottom right here, all of this page, and then the top of this page. I don't know. It'll be kind of interesting to see what it says. All right. Well, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. I miss you, and I will see you guys on Monday. Bye.